irony of the whole situation is everybody always says, well, hire the labor, hire the hard work done, and you go be smart in the office. And that's fine on paper and in theory, but the things that I found is that the struggle and the hard actual work that you put in daily transfers to a better mindset for your business and everything else. So going back and doing more work started me on this path of actually losing weight and kind of getting in a better mind frame. And then
thank you for listening to the Farm for Fun podcast, a happy hour spinoff of the Farm for Profit podcast. These episodes are hosted by Tanner Winteroff, the Iowa Bankerman, David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, and a random farmer named Corey. Each episode, they plan to focus on a brewery or distillery while talking about all current events and everything else. Crack a beer, mix a drink, and join on the fun. Remember, if you aren't farming for fun, we know you probably have yet to donate to the Travis Burkhart Foundation.
All right, it's time for another Farm for Fun episode. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo.
And this is David Whitaker.
Welcome back. We are, like I said, doing the Farm for Fun episode style. So we are going to talk with a guest today, enjoy a couple of beverages. The next episode in your queue is a Farm for Profit style. So we have a What's Working in Ag segment, a general topic, and then a challenge for you. So don't get confused. Stick around and have some fun.
Yeah, we finally thawed out a little bit. It was, solid like 16 or 17 days of negative below zero temperatures. So yeah. I was tired of that.
A lot of cold. But now we've lost a lot of our snow already.
Yeah.
It's gone.
45 degrees yesterday.
Yeah, I was out in a t-shirt. It felt like 70.
No, it was perfect. And listeners, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that. Don't forget to hit like, rate, and send us your review. Corey, we've got a couple of reviews this week to share with our listeners.
Yeah, one was a local farmer that we know, David Swenson. He said, I picked up the podcast last fall after the derecho from a friend's recommendation. Those episodes were a huge help navigating that period of time, and I'm still catching up, but I really enjoyed the podcast so far. The social media interviews have been awesome, too.
All right. That was nice.
I'd also
Thank
like
you, Dave.
to point out 1206 Hammer Slammer said, I find these guys kind of boring, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. So thank you for putting forth the effort to type that out and still giving us a shot.
All reviews matter.
Asshole.
That's perfect. And yeah. And listener, don't forget to go out to our website. We got a lot of stuff going on at the website right now. Farm4Profit.com. First of all is going to be that link for BW Fusion and their offer. We've never had an offer this big before. It's up to $2,500 in value, Corey.
It's huge.
Huge. So go out there, find it, click over there, send your information over, let them know you heard it at Farm for Profit. Learn about what they can do to boost those microbials in your soil and get the activity flowing. Also, we got information out there about the Travis Burkhart Foundation fundraising auction that we're going to talk a little bit more about later. So Farm for Profit, LLC. On social media, farm4profit.com.
Get it. Let's get our guest introduced. We have to get some nice independent music. I've had some copyright issues.
Oh,
Shut up and sit down.
Is this what we're going with? Today, we get back to our roots and jump south to a true ag Twitter OG. I've always looked up to this man and respected his thoughts because he truly tells it like it is. He has a podcast called Ag Uncensored. Go check it out after this show. His thoughts on let me back up. His thoughts on society, agriculture, commodity markets, fringe acre farming, ranching, health, life, and family truly make a person stop and think. The last couple of years, he's been on a health and enlightenment journey that seems to be kicking every day's ass. If you're in the grain marketing discussion group on Facebook, you either love him or you hate him. There is no in between. From the panhandle of Oklahoma, Mr. Jerod McDaniel. Woo!
Well, thank you. That's definitely an interesting introduction. Thank you.
I stumbled through that one, man. I haven't stumbled for a while, but that wasn't so hot. So how's it going, Jerod?
It's going great. I love that you brought in the grain market discussion group. Well, that's some head spinning stuff over there. Good luck, guys.
Oh my gosh, I enjoy watching it. And then you said you like to poke the bear, and I think I like to poke the bear a little bit too.
Yeah. No, I think they're a great group of people. It's neat. I've just barely been on Facebook. It's like my social media frontier. I have no clue how it works. So I really am just kind of stumbling through it. And it's like, oh, you go here and you talk about stuff, and apparently you don't talk about stuff there. I'm still figuring that all out. So good luck.
Oh yeah, that's great. So we come. I mean, we've been here. We've been in Twitter, but we've actually been over on TikTok quite a bit. I mean, I'd say Tanner, Dave, don't you think we've been kind of over there quite quite a bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of the way the guests lined up and fell as they may, we did seem to be spending a lot of time over there.
I think we just went with the flow.
Yep.
Right? And the flow went that way, and we're trying to not get away from TikTok, but we have a list of people, and we've been trying to get Jerod on for quite a while. So a lot of people on Twitter know your background, maybe not so much on TikTok. So Jerod, just give us a little background about yourself, your family, what you guys do.
You bet. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for taking the time to get me on. Yeah, it's really neat how the social media platforms, like they're almost like different small towns. Like, where are you from? Oh, you're from over there, and you're from over there. It's cool how that is. I'm from Texoma, Oklahoma. I grew up here. Basically, my mom was a computer professor at a local college. Taught school over there for many years. My stepdad is a basketball coach and my high school principal, so I was raised in town. My grandparents had a farm and ranch out northwest of Texoma, and I spent my youth kind of growing up working there, doing that stuff. And then just so happened that I ended up in a management position there very early on whenever I was 18 due to my grandfather having some health problems, and just kind of morphed into where I'm at today. You know, I started early on, kind of had a crash course in how to run a farm and a ranch, and learned a lot of things the hard way. And, you know, I have also kind of had the innocence taken, not just kind of pulled back. You know, the romance of having farming and ranching in your family and lifestyle is one thing, but then to actually go forth and have to do that is another. So, you know, it's been a great journey. I've loved every minute of it. I'm very blessed and have a wonderful family. My wife Julie and 6 kids. So I wake up every day and I'm happy to be alive. So that's it in a nutshell.
6 kids. That's
Six
that's an
kids.
army.
My.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, everybody. It never amazes me whenever I tell people how many kids we have, and you know, I was married prior to this marriage, and I had a daughter, and then Julie, she was also married and had a son, and then of course we got married and we had 4 more together, so we have 6 kids collectively. So it's a great time. You know, there's never a dull moment. We kind of have like 3 pairs, an older, a middle, a younger, and it's really cool. It's just, you know, their lives are going 100 miles an hour, and if you can, you know, I can ride that, you know, the wave of energy that they have. It's amazing, you know, what you can do and what the life that's just there with that many people in a house. I mean, I grew up in a big family. I was one of 8, and I always kind of had the idea like, I don't really want a big family. I lived through that. I was like, this is kind of like time out here. I don't know that I want to do this again. But you know, when you find the right person and you get married, you just it clicks and you go. And just after we got enough kids, we were like, okay, we're done. And we moved on.
We're
and
done.
We started, you know, then we just started raising them. So
Man,
it's been a blast.
sometimes I wonder how people, we have 2 ourselves, and I don't know how, you know, if I can imagine like double that. I'm like, I don't know how I could do it. But you just do it, right?
I really think you stop counting after 3. And everybody says, well, you know, like after 3, it's hard, but 4, 5, 6, it doesn't. The number, it's like farming. You get a big enough piece of equipment, you can handle anything. You just scale up is all you do.
Yeah, they kind of start aging up, and they can kind of watch each other, right?
Oh, totally. There's so much of that goes on. I mean, like Child Protective Services probably can't come in fast enough. But, you know, the older ones watch the little ones, and it's great because that teaches them responsibility. It teaches them the real world where, you know, even this, like during this coronavirus where, you know, mom and dad and even the older siblings are out working, and the middle ones are watching the younger kid while we're out taking care of cattle, doing what we have to tend to the needs of the ranch for, you know, the kids sharing that responsibility. And that's part of something that I really enjoy about living and working where I do.
Yeah. I worked with a guy that, from an old Catholic family that had 17 brothers and sisters.
Jeez.
Yeah.
17.
My dad has 13.
Oh my gosh.
His uncle is actually the same age as him because his parents were having kids the same time that my dad was having kids his dad was. So, yeah.
Man, I think like financially, think of like what they had to do.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded to coronavirus, Jerod. It's been kind of a unique thing to see how every family is handling the Rona differently. I mean, and in geographic areas as to limitations by governors, acceptability in each town. It's kind of been fascinating to see that play out. Is that something that you've paid attention to?
Oh yeah, very much so. It's just very interesting when you look at the culture as a whole, and then you get into certain areas, and even out here, something that is kind of like the more isolated we were to begin with. At the beginning, the more independent everybody seemed to be, and even whenever I personally believe that it kind of came through here, and with all the packing industry up and down, we kind of had maybe herd immunity a little earlier, because I'm not saying that stuff didn't happen here. Obviously we all lived through the same thing, but for the most part, everybody out here stayed pretty well open, and it was kind of surreal to, everybody left in last year in spring break. You come home, you have an extended vacation, and we come back to school in the fall. I mean, Oklahoma kind of said we're going to do it, and they opened up and threw the doors open, and different protocols, mask, whatnot. We went through here football season, have basketball, kids have maintained going to school, other than isolated incidents here and there. Everything's went back to normal for the most part, and yet I see other parts of the world that don't enjoy those freedoms, and it's really it's just different to me, because we live in the same country, and there's other places where people actively don't have the same freedoms, and I don't know how to register that, really, honestly.
I can see that in our local community even. So we went down to Des Moines, Iowa last week for the cattle show. Thousands of people and no mask mandate, and nobody, not that anybody didn't care at the fairgrounds. Yeah, but it seemed like anything was out of the ordinary. And then come back to Ames, which in our county, there is a mask mandate, and the kids are still not in school in some parts. So even locally, I mean, that's only 30 miles away. There's volatility.
I would argue that it probably had a lot to do with the people that were there. I mean, the livestock people in general.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I bet if you would have tried to go to a restaurant in Des Moines, I bet you would have had to wear a mask.
Probably.
They would have tried to make you anyway. So,
yeah. See, it's odd to me, because it's like almost like time travel, because when I hear people's conversations from different parts of the world, it's almost like you can see the different levels that they're opening up. And some of this stuff happened very rapidly here, just because everybody kind of went through it. And there's also a giant migrant population that, for the most part, where they come from, and I alluded to this at the very early part of whatever it is, pandemic, whatever, that where they came from was so bad that whenever they come here and they say, there's maybe something going to happen if it was such a minuscule risk in their world. They were like, I need to go to work. I need to work and make money to feed my family. That was their only objective. And it came from a real place of like where they migrated from. Like, they understood the value of being here, and I think that they forego the scare and the hype of this could give really damage this, that, or the other. They're like, well, I'll do whatever I need to keep going to work. They weren't blinded by all this hysteria, because probably they just lived a harder life. I mean, that's my my speculation. I have no degree in anthropology or anything. It's just where I see things. But I do think that lended itself to us maybe getting a little more open, a little more kind of, bucking the system. And then it just kind of steamrolled into this thing where, you start to see there's only a handful of places that are still holding out and doing stuff. And it's almost like it went away, but then I still see things like you guys are talking about. There's places where kids aren't in school, and that just floors me. I don't get it, man. I just don't understand it, and I wish I did, because I don't know how it works there.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. It's easy to say, oh, don't go to school, or you can't go to restaurants, you can't do this, and it's easy to do right now. Don't go to church, that kind of stuff. But the long-term effect that I think about, we're throwing wrenches in gears that, for long term, I mean, like, what's going to happen next year at Christmas? And you can go to your Christmas or whatever, or you can go to church. Is that person going to say, we didn't do it last year and it turned out fine? Are we not going to go now?
Right. What happens to tradition?
Yeah.
What you permit, you promote.
Yeah. So I think there might be some long-term effects that we might have to deal with down the road.
You bet. Well, I mean, it'll turn this into a more transient, not a transient, but a society that's comfortable, living virtually. And it's surreal. We talk about podcasting. I can remember when I first started, I went and bought a Zoom subscription, or, it was something that the only people who understood Zoom were other podcasters or people in business that did occasional, meetings. Mm-hmm. When the pandemic happened, all of a sudden, every single person in the world knows how to use Zoom. And it was really surreal to watch this transformation of, my communication was done virtually in so many levels, in so many ways in this medium or format. And then it was everybody else overnight came online, and it's like, oh, well, now everybody's doing it this way. So that's my perspective, from outside looking in. But
can I just say that we actually found a couple people that had not used Zoom?
Corey
really?
Corey and I hosted a Zoom meeting, and we had 3 people out of that Zoom audience ask us how to use Zoom. Where do you get Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's changed us. I mean, you're right. I mean, and let's be honest, there's probably some people who are going to use the pandemic as an excuse to not go to family members maybe they didn't want to go to begin with.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of truths that to me have been revealed as far as, when you put a price on doing something is are you really going to go the extra step to do something, even if it defies maybe culture, maybe it defies something that is ordained that you're not supposed to? Because if you will, that means you actually believe in that, and that maybe that's going to your ancestor's house. Maybe it's doing something different. But some people don't. Some people say, no, I'm going. There's value levels, and this has really done a lot to really kind of put everybody on notice of where their values actually are. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just reveals a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's brighten this mood up a little bit.
Yeah.
Talking about the pandemic.
I'll go all dark.
Yeah.
Now, Jerod, I apologize, and I'm not going to take full ownership of not getting this beer to you on time. But apparently, when that big ice storm that you guys had down there pushed all these flights back, pushed all the deliveries back. So I promise the beer's on its way.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get to try it sometime. But until then, we're going to go ahead and open one here.
You should. I think you guys should do it, and then I'll get an actual list of the beers, and maybe I'll live review them on Twitter or something.
We only got 2 this week. Usually they send us 4 or 5.
Yeah.
What are they? I don't know if I've ever had them, but if I have, I'll just make up a review and drink a Gatorade.
Yeah, so it's from Franklin Street Brewing Company in Manchester, Iowa, and the first one that we are going to open up that I just opened is called the Drugstore Cowboy, and it is a New England style IPA. But while I'm pouring this out for our sample, Jerod, you alluded to your podcast. How did you decide to start doing a podcast, or where did that brainchild come from?
Oh boy, that actually was kind of the second, like a 2.0 of a kind of jaunt into the media world. I started. The first thing I ever did on any kind of platform is, ironically, on YouTube. on a channel, BTFD TV. It was a financial network that was kind of in the early days.
What was that? BTFD? What does that stand for? BTFD
TV, and that was back in it said buy the dip.
I was gonna say Big Ten effing network.
Yeah, there you go. But it was in oh boy, I don't remember. I think it was 2013, 14, somewhere in there. Yes, 2000. I'm right around then. But it was in the early days of Twitter. There was I had people that we interacted on a social media level, and then also that group started that network and asked me to host a show. I was just friends of one of the creators of the network, and so it's just a weird series of events that he said, "Hey, you like to talk on social media. Do you want to host a show?" I was like, "Okay, sure, I'll try it." So it was kind of like the story. Go in the closet or the pantry and put a picture up behind you and I got a screen, crappy internet, and we use Google Hangouts, and I'd actually host. We would host shows, and it started with me and maybe 1 or 2 guests. I interviewed Philip Shaw, Agrodome, he was my very first guest on that back in the day. We had guys like Devin Hardy and Steven Ellis was on. There was just too many people to even list. A lot of guys that are on Twitter now that have been on there a long time, they would join me just like we're doing now. It was Zoom, but it was back in the early days when everybody had crappy internet, and people they could barely get on because they used up their data for the month. And it was like that's how old it was when we were doing that. It was a blast. I got to this point where we were having these discussions, and it was a lot of fun. But it also took a lot of time. We would go like 2 or 3 hours and do these long shows. They're still out there. They're floating around on YouTube. But that was my first kind of foray into media. And then the reality of, keeping up that doesn't work in my world. So I kind of stepped away and just kind of just was on social media and grew that. And then the podcasting deal just kind of popped in, and I said, you know what, it's something that I'd like to do. At that point, Rob had already started his Shark Farmer podcast, and it was really taking off. And I'm sure there were a few others. I don't know how many were going at that time. Then I just launched mine, and the same way I started interviewing 2 a.m. I finally figured out how to plug everything together. I had my microphone, my Zoom, computer. I finally made it all work. And I went and drug my wife out of bed. God bless her soul. She's a saint. And she came in the kitchen and, I saw this amalgamation of whatever junk I had there and proceeded to have a conversation with me. And I recorded it. And it was a brilliant conversation for 30 minutes in the middle of the night that I loved. And I was like, that's my first episode because it was genuinely uncensored. And in all my wisdom, I actually messed up the recording, and so it's actually like only 14 minutes long. There's a whole bunch that never got recorded because I didn't know what I was doing. But so that's episode 1. If you ever listen to it, it's there with all the bad audio, everything that's horrible. But that was the very first podcast episode, and then from there I just learned how to do it and kind of self-taught. So, and have just really worked on paying attention to the conversation and trying to make it better every time. So, and I'm not really good about keeping up with the schedule. It's whatever fits my life. I'm not paid to do it. And as much as anything, it's built me a huge network of people, friends and people that I can, talk to and learn from. So, that's payment in itself. As far as I'm concerned, I'll do it for free. So,
So I got
cool.
a good story about that. So, you and I think it's 2016, 2017, we were talking, Tanner and I were talking about doing a podcast. Probably not quite what we're doing now, but we had talked about doing some other stuff.
It wasn't even close.
And it was along the lines of a uncensored or, unfiltered type of ag, non-PC type of podcast. And, Tanner was a banker and feared for his job, so he ultimately didn't end up doing it. But I remember finding, I was already friends with you, Jerod, and I remember I was just like Googling something. I don't even think it was on Twitter. And I was like, Ag Uncensored. And it was a podcast and it said coming soon. And I'm like, that's our podcast. And I actually messaged.
Oh, it's so funny.
I actually messaged Jerod. I went back to my messages today, and you ghosted me. I DM'd you, and I was like, "Hey, man, what's going on with this? This sounds awesome." And you never replied, asshole.
New phone. Who's this?
Yeah, exactly. But then, like a month or two later, we were talking. And then you asked me to be a guest, and I haven't been on a guest on it yet. So,
yeah. Well, we haven't made it work yet. That's where I'm at.
There you go. You ghosted him right back.
So no,
it is funny. I'm sure there's a long list that is of people, because I talk to them like, man, you should be on the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then like it just kind of falls away.
Yep.
And then I go back. I'm like, oh, I need to go call that guy.
We have done that to, I bet, a dozen people, and we got to circle back. But like I said in the beginning, the TikTok thing just came in and like it thrust itself to the front.
Yeah,
I mean, it
you
demanded
need to talk to me. You need to talk to this guy.
So it was hard to, you got to go where the momentum is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, well, hey, I've listened to some of your stuff when you guys talk to. I think Tony Reed was that.
Yeah.
Corn.
Growing corn.
And I really like that guy. He's very down to earth, very level, and
uncensored.
Same thing. I dwell on TikTok. I'm a novice rookie. I mess around.
Yeah.
I like to go over there and watch it every now and then. It's kind of like I said, it's going to another town. You're going over and seeing, what's going on over there. And just the few of the personalities that I've seen, I really enjoyed. Just because it's open. It's a lot more open dialogue, I'd say, than Twitter.
It's the Wild
That's
West.
something that I like. It's something that works well. So.
Let's try this beer.
All right, let's give the Drugstore Cowboy, the New England IPA, a taste.
It's definitely an IPA.
It's kind of boring.
It's horrible.
Dave hates
I was
beer.
wondering what New England meant with IPA.
I don't know. I wouldn't call it boring. It just doesn't smack you in the mouth.
It was like take a second and then smack you in the mouth.
I'm sticking with boring. Out of all the IPAs that we've tasted, this is...
I really like the can.
It's a little drier. It's a drier IPA. It's not my favorite.
I don't mind it.
I could drink it.
Yeah, you're not going to go buy it.
Yeah.
No. I don't know.
Manchester, Iowa. sorry for the great beer review.
Yeah.
Franklin Street Brewing Company. Thanks to
Thank
Dole
you.
Distributing.
Yeah, thank
If you
Dole
like
Distributing.
IPAs, it'd be
It's
just
very
standard.
drinkable. I
easy
just don't
drinker.
think it's just
Tanner's just
we've
a
been
snob
spoiled.
now.
Right.
He's a snob now. Yeah.
We've been spoiled, Jared. We taste all these different beers, and then when you get a regular IPA, I just was bored.
Yeah.
So do you guys? What's your thoughts on IPA? Because I mean, I don't drink much, but whenever I used to drink more, I really liked them. But man, you like 2 or 3 and it tears your gut up. Like, how do you actually like consume a lot of IPAs?
I don't think you do, or I think that's a bad path if you do. If you're going to consume a lot of beers, you need to go to your Coors Light or Busch Light or your lighter beers.
Is there like a saying for that? Like beer before liquor. You never. Is there like IPA before?
The way I always treated craft beer was like if I was going out to a fancy dinner or meeting up with a couple buddies and knowing I was only going to have 1 or 2, I would have an IPA. Normally because it has 7 or 8% alcohol and
there you go. That's what I was like. We all do the math. Like you have 3 IPAs and it's like we just had a 12-pack. We're rocking.
Yeah.
That's what everybody does beer math that way.
Yeah, and my family's kind of gone the route of we like trying these. The podcast is kind of spun off into my personal life, and our family likes to go through the grocery store and we have the pick 6 option where you can get 6 different flavors, and we do this. We end up sharing the beer. So most of the time when I do an IPA, it ends up being half a beer of 4 different beers, and then we go to a Busch Light or a Coors Light.
yeah.
So have you guys ever brewed your own beer?
I have in one of those kits.
Yep, I've also done it in a kit.
Yeah.
I've never done like the mash myself.
I'm like on that kit level. I had the pot and it made a couple of deals, and they were way too strong, and I didn't know. Nobody died. That was a
died
win.
in the making of this.
But I've seen the people that have those home setups that look like they come out of like nuclear fission, something 101, and they have these beautiful setups, and I love to drink that beer that somebody makes. I think it just tastes better, even if it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think that stuff is so cool because it's it's one off. You'll never drink it again.
TJ Masker does that, and he's given us some before, and we need to get him on the show. But
we've got a friend of the podcast that is big time into brewing, and that's the same thing. I've got a kit right now that I need to do, and my goal all winter was to do it when things slowed down, and it didn't really slow down.
When your brain never stops and you try to keep doing more podcasts and other media things, it never slows down.
Yeah, and see, that's something that's what I notice about TikTok is you guys do tons of like filming yourself, and I notice that with kids on Snapchat, and even I've never been to Snapchat, so I don't know what that is. But like, do you ever get tired of filming yourself? Because you kind of have to do it for almost a lot of stuff, right?
I asked that question last week. Yeah,
it's TikTok fatigue because it doesn't take necessarily a lot of time to actually do, because it's a 15-second video or it's a 1-minute video, or somewhere in between. But it takes a lot of time and up here in your head to just kind of scroll through and get ideas, to be inspired. So that's what it is.
What little bit I've played around, just trying to, it's a mental thing because you say, okay, I've got this creative idea of doing this, mechanical thing, or like I rolled some hay, uses something, and you're like, how am I going to sync that up with something else that's creative? And it's really interesting, but you find yourself kind of going down a little rabbit hole, and then you make this thing. And what I think is so interesting is there's a ton of really awesome creative content that just kind of gets thrown out there, and it's like the best lure in a pond with no fish.
Yeah,
it is. There's some really brilliant stuff that just gets washed away. Yep. But like other platforms, garbage gets floats around all the time. And so it's really unique to TikTok is that there's tons of creative stuff that kind of doesn't get seen, I guess.
I agree. Corey and I and Dave have all talked about this. Some of the things that I think are the funniest TikToks that I've made have the least amount of views.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that transfers to Twitter. It's been on there almost over a decade now.
Yeah, hold on just a sec. I looked it up. You're over 112,000 tweets on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
just a couple.
That's interesting. I'd never even known that metric. That's what happens when you live in the middle of nowhere and you get auto steer at the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, keep going. I interrupted you.
Oh, that's all right. I've lost my train of thought. Where were we talking about?
You're just where things float around on Twitter. The creativity, just sometimes things go unnoticed.
Yes. Yeah, no, like whenever you have a really, I could say some of the funniest things that I've laughed about, and even believe that I think are the funniest in the world get like 3 likes.
Yeah.
And then you can throw out just complete hack garbage that is you're just hitting a soft one, and it's easy. It's no everybody can come up with, and it'll explode. It's like this is funny, it's hysterical. I'm like, it makes you want to slam your head in the door. It's like, come on,
it's all the Chinese algorithms
touched it, but
yeah. I mean, when we first got on it, it was kind of a competition. Like, we both got on, Tanner and I both got on it, and it was kind of watching videos and kind of trying to figure it out and navigate the system. We have no content. And then I actually put a bunch of my old Vine. I used to have Vine.
Yeah, Vine. I went down the Vine road. It was kind of a precursor to TikTok.
And I put some of my Vines up, and I'm like, this is gold, and it would get nothing.
Yeah.
And then you kind of start posting some natural stuff. The thing I think that hit it bigger for me was when I was putting not a song behind it, but I was like talking about the combine or talking about the corn and like being original.
Mm-hmm.
And people liked that. And then Tanner hit one that went, how many views did that get?
Just 1 million.
Yeah, just 1 million views of some random guy sucking up beans in a
Yep, hired hand, grain backing.
And I said, why the heck? And we were trying to figure it out. Was it the hashtags? Was it the music? And we were trying to figure it out. We still don't have it figured out.
There's a lot of people trying to figure that out.
But the one thing I think I have found out is you have to post consistently. If you take a week off, you get buried back down. If you come back with gold, you're screwed. You have to build it back up.
So in that platform or whatever, if you want to maintain a spot, in the algorithm, you have to kind of keep feeding content.
So even if it's not a good quality piece, you got to put it out. You got to do it at least once a day.
I've seen some of the top creators that will put the same video out with 3 different music backgrounds or 3 different sets of hashtags. You just to keep it, make it available.
Yeah, just repost old stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. You made, everybody's scrolling past it. They're not going to remember seeing it the first time or the second time. So
See, when people are bored, they just duet themselves, and they're like, "Yeah, I made this video 5 years ago.
Exactly. Check it out.
I don't have any content today, but I made this one."
Yeah. Well, so my question is, with all that, like you were sitting here talking about strategies on maybe TikTok or what we've seen work on different platforms. I always have a question for people, like, to what end? Like, what are we doing this for?
Yeah.
I mean, what, like, if you guys ever just stopped and just thought, like, what are we doing? Does anybody have an answer?
I've thought about it on TikTok because at the beginning there was no end. I mean, it was just purely entertainment, right? That was like when you're sitting in the grain line at the elevator, or you're dumping a load of corn and you're just got some dead space, right?
That was Twitter. I mean, that was just kind of like, it was something to fill the void of time, because we in agriculture have so much, and then we also find so many like-minded people. It's a weird subculture that exists, and it's real, and it's across the nation. And I love that it exists kind of right in front of and underneath the rest of the world, and nobody even knows it's there sometimes.
Yep.
But
I like where you were going with that. I think for me personally, this podcast has connected me to more people than I ever thought it would. And that's the same thing that Twitter did, and the same thing that TikTok did for me. I mean, I've got pockets on both social media platforms that really don't cross over. And then the podcast itself brings it all together. I mean, you're asking what's the end? Ultimately, for me, it's a friend. It truly is, and a friend of varying levels. Someone you can bounce a question off of. Maybe it's a peer group. Maybe it's these guys sitting right here in the room with me.
Yeah.
To me, my end, it's just growing that network and getting to meet a lot of really cool people.
Yeah. I think some of the singers online have had an end where they've got noticed, and once they got enough songs out there, they have not record labels anymore, but now their songs are going viral enough that they became singers.
Getting contracts.
Yeah, getting contracts.
I can echo exactly what both you guys' sentiment, and I agree wholeheartedly with it. The network and friends. I mean, Corey can attest. We talk in a group daily. It's kind of neat how you meet people, and then you find pockets of people with like interests, and you kind of feed off a network and the positivity that comes from that. It if you let it really affects you daily, and the same goes for negative stuff. I mean, it's whatever you put in your life, you kind of get that back out.
Yeah.
And as far as when you're talking about, singers and people who are getting exposure that never would have. I mean, I can echo that wholeheartedly. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere in a small town of 1,000 people. I went to college at Oklahoma State, just like everybody else, went down there, partied, had the moment at the tumbleweeds and the wormy dogs, and did, just live life as anybody would, but nothing necessarily as a point to get noticed. And when social media came along, I started to find that, what I maybe deemed was ordinary or just like a normal everyday life, we really do live a different life out here, and that's okay. And where people live there is different, and starting to recognize that and realize that each place has its own flavor. It makes life way more cool than thinking that it's all just, we're all bland, we just watch different TV shows. No, man, like how I exist here is completely different than how people exist somewhere else. And it's really cool to see that across those networks. And I've been able to get out and get exposure and get, this, I don't know how big my network is, but I know it's bigger. There's more people that I could run into than I could ever meet, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I see that when I go to events and stuff like that. So
you brought up another good point. So Tony Reed, the Growing Corn 2020 that we talked about earlier, he started a podcast himself, and he kind of hit right on that topic on the episode that came out this week, that he didn't know how to grow barley. He didn't have a clue how barley was marketed. I mean, there's a lot of people in agriculture that are in different subsets that have an idea of what a combine is, yes, but not necessarily the process that it takes to get that crop from start to finish, even though we're doing a lot of the same basic things.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is where I farm and ranch. Those are two different groups that sometimes, when corn is high, farmers are, they're dancing on the graves of the end user. They're like, we don't care if it goes to 20. You owe us all that money. And the cattle guys and the corn guys are screaming bloody murder. Flip side, whenever it's cheap, the corn guys the cattle and the pig guys, they're making a margin. They're like, hey, let's not rock the boat. Let's keep this prices down.
Yeah.
and I feed cattle, and I also raise corn, and I'm in both, so I see both worlds, and I get it. I mean, there's times that I'm like, put on my farmer's hat, can we get rid of these cows? And there's times that it's like, hey, can we get more cows? Because this farming really sucks right now.
Yeah.
But that's the reality, is that there are different worlds and there are different demands that people have. And, when I think it's funny when people try to talk about agriculture in a blanket statement in any way, shape, or form now, is that it's so diverse in that if you really stop to look at it, we all do the same thing, but we do it slightly different and with a different, bent, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. Now I want to dive in. You said that you and Corey text on a daily basis. What are you guys always talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm mostly working out.
Yeah. It's called the workout MFers.
Yeah.
MFers. Is that where that no excuses came from?
Well, I don't think it came from that, but it's used in there.
I'll tell you, when I started using that no excuses hashtag is after I did a podcast with Dan Byers, and he's a dude, and this is wearing his hat. In fact, there's another guy, just Jaco and Owen Farms. I got his shirt. When I run daily and take pictures, if I can, I wear shirts of friends or guys that if I can promote them on whatever level, great, man. I'll do it all day long. Just because I think that there's people that when I started running, I've been running for a long time, but when I started posting it, there were people who just randomly were like, hey man, good job, and it was kind of nerve wracking because when I started throwing it out there, I don't really, you don't know what the response is going to be. It might be like, you look like an idiot, and it happens, and it's just what it is. But then there's people that, look out and will say, hey man, good job. And then you start to put these people together and get them to meet. You find really, really positive people. And what's cool is when you cross those positive people up, then you see almost an explosion of like ideas and creativity. And not just in that group. I've been a part of several groups of people that have kind of came together organically like that. And I keep finding every time I get into or start or be part of a group that's not necessarily like out in the wide open. It's more like, hey, let's have a real discussion. There's a lot of real cool things that happen behind the scenes, and then that goes forward into real life where you have actual tangible benefits that come from just that. I think it's like if you were to have an actual organic network. It's like if LinkedIn were real. Yeah. LinkedIn's a big let's pat each other on the back, but I don't know what its purpose is. But if you were to maybe make it a human interaction, something of that nature. But
Yeah, it's an amazing group that we have. Like you said, it's called the Workout MFers, but I mean, we always post about working out, but honestly, the deep conversations go into so many other facets of life and so many great ideas. Jerod,
Twitter page?
We have a private chat on Twitter, and then we have a Slack group as well.
Slack, yeah.
So, yep. But I met Jerod in, 2017 or 2018?
Yeah, no, we met at Omaha at FBN, right?
Jerod was a lot bigger than he is now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
So, what do you weigh now, Jerod? Because I wrote down you're 270 in May of 19.
270? Yeah. You look nothing like 270 right now.
No, I'm about 205. I've spent the last however many years or months just kind of a middle. I don't know. Maybe that was my midlife crisis. I just said I'm tired of my own crap and started getting better.
Good for you.
And it literally is like, and I'm not the same trajectory, but I didn't quite get to 270, but I'm hopefully on my way back down for good. I think I'm down like 12 or 14 pounds or something like that. But I listened to Dan Byers' podcast with Jerod, or Jerod's podcast with Dan Byers. I was running the grain cart one day. We were picking down corn, and I think I just got done eating a tenderloin or something that someone brought to the field, a seed salesman brought to the field or something. And
feeling pretty good about yourself right there, weren't you?
And I was just like, and Dan's like, yeah, I get up at 3:05 every day. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. And, and all this stuff. But it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to get up at 3:05, but there is a lot of things I can change about my life. I don't have to be a specimen of health and nutrition, but I can do a lot of things that can make it a lot better. So it really got me thinking.
Incremental changes.
Yep.
Yeah. And my journey, I guess, started a couple years ago whenever I had to let an employee go, just one of those things that just happened. And, I had enough room in my time to pick up the slack. So I just started working again. It was, I don't know how to explain it. At some point, to put it in perspective, whenever I started, I was 18 and I'm 44. I'll be 44 tomorrow. Anyway, so I've been at it for that long. I guess 26 years. And somewhere over 26 years, I started off, I was the kid, I was the man, I was the laborer. And so I did it until at some point you just get, people hired and you start doing other things, management. I still did work, but it was like, I'm planting the corn, or I'm, and it just falls through the cracks. Your health, you don't work as hard. And finally it was like, I got to kind of take responsibility for my own stuff and do more of the work. And when I did, I started, amazingly getting in better health. It was kind of cathartic realization that you just put off, in all this effort to be smart and manage and do all this stuff. Everybody says, well, this is ironic. The irony of the whole situation is everybody always says, well, hire the labor, hire the hard work done, and you go be smart in the office. And that's fine on paper and in theory, but the things that I found is that the struggle and the hard actual work that you put in daily transfers to a better mindset for your business and everything else. So going back and doing more work started me on this path of actually losing weight and kind of getting in a better mind frame. And then that morphed into, I kind of met some guys, and we ended up going to Canada doing a podcast, and just, got around them, understood their habits, how they were, really was influenced in a positive way, and then took that and started running because I didn't know any better. Honestly, I was a middle-aged guy. I grew up playing football and basketball. My dad was a basketball coach, so I had tons of basketball camp. I knew everything about athletics. It wasn't that I didn't know about that. I hated running. Actually, I despised it. But it was something that was very convenient, and I could do at my house, and I could run from my windmill to my mailbox. It was a half mile. I could do that. Then I could just do it every day. And I just started doing it and just never quit. And every time I'd run, I'd go a little further. And I think the first time I just, 14, 15-minute mile, I don't know. I couldn't make it. I couldn't make a mile. And then I just that was my routine, is I just started doing that every day. And the discipline of doing it daily, even whenever it sucks, you're making yourself go do that. Again, it fell in line with what I had experienced the summer before of just taking responsibility and doing my work. So it morphed into where it is now. It's like every day you work out and you take care of yourself and you take care of your family and you take care of your business and you don't worry about all the little crap, because I'll just tell you today, I ran 6 miles. It took about 58 minutes. So for almost an hour, I just ran. And when you do that and you get done and you feel great, and then you realize that any other thing that comes at you that day is going to be way less miserable. And it's going to be like, I just did that thing. So whatever kind of crap comes at me in my life, that rest of that day is basically minuscule. Every single day.
What about like a huge snowstorm, cold snap in your area? With that takes a little more to overcome there.
You run with more clothes on if you can.
There you go.
I mean, Corey could tell you, I run if at all possible.
Yeah.
My schedule basically is I try to run daily. If I can't, it's usually because of kids' activities or because of work. And if I skip, I think the most I've skipped is a couple days here in this last ice storm. But even then, there's workout materials you can do inside. It's not about like the workout. It's the fact that you care enough to show up and do it, whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
I went and spent $4,000 on a bike and a rower and put it in my garage and took a stall out of my garage, put a big rug in there, and I got TVs and all that stuff. Not to make it more convenient. I guess but like I didn't want the excuse. And a lot of the time, my time to work out was when the kids went to bed. Yeah. And it's dark and cold or crappy. I didn't want that. So I could go out and ride on the bike for 45 minutes or an hour or go row. And I mean, probably not quite as a good workout as it is going and running 6 miles, but it's throwing up.
Something that I'll tell you that really kind of, this is, again, it's kind of the transformation of going through this. When you go out and run underneath the full moon, even if you're going out and walking, anywhere you can do that, and you hear the sounds of the night and nature and everything else, there's a connection there that you don't get. Like when we're out in a tractor and you hear the hum and we're all listening to each other's podcasts. I mean, we're not out in nature, but when you go run and you're quiet, or if you go work out, I mean, just any kind of way to get out of the house and break your habits. Because I should preface this by saying we turned off our TV 8 or 9 years ago. I mean, I watch very little, maybe a few Netflix things, and I haven't even done that in a year or so. But so there's no time that I occupy with that. I mean, I'm always on my phone, plenty of time on Twitter and all that other crap. But so I very much have removed any and everything that doesn't have something to do with either work or family and friends through the internet or doing podcasts and I'm extremely thrilled and happy with it. Like I want nothing other than the life that I have right now. So
yeah, we are live on TikTok right now, and one of the comments that we got on the sides from Mike Burkhart, actually he left a couple of comments. During this, it's a mental. It just gets the blood flowing, gets the blood up to your brain, allows you a great time to think. I mean, for me, that's kind of the way I use it. Is I can go for a jog, I can go for a run, and I don't listen to music. For me, it's a headspace thing. I very rarely have any music going. It's just a personal preference of mine. Yeah. But what I've loved seeing is when I go down to sit on the exercise bike and my daughters want to come down and work out next to me. I mean, we're talking about a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, almost 7, almost 5. And they want to come down and they literally their favorite thing to do is burpees. I mean, just to do it with Dad, and that's the thing that I'm not going to force them to do any of this, but the fact that they're liking an active lifestyle is what makes me really happy.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing point, and it's great. One of the things when I started running, I had never done a 5K or anything like that, but one came up, and one of my daughters, one of my middle daughters, had just got into cross country because school starting back up and. Things were going, and I ran a 5K with her in it, and that was a really cool experience because we'd never had that chance to connect on that level, but I actually was in enough shape I could run it with her. I couldn't keep up with her by the time we had gotten to the race deal, but when she first got in cross country, I could talk a little crap because I could beat her. and I did, and I'm not going to apologize. I'm like, hey, you just got beat by your old man, and if you know how we're pretty competitive, and I don't say that lightly or meanly. I say just as a fact. And she recognized that she should be mopping the floor with me, and she does. She blows me off the course, and I love it. But you're right. That it's that connection of you get to now go run with your kids and also they see you as an active lifestyle. And now, our entire family, we're doing this Walk 2021 challenge where every day they might go and walk or run with me. Kids might, we just, every time we record the miles we do, and I add my miles in, and my mother who lives in town adds her miles in, and we're trying to get to 2021 miles, and we're quite a ways towards it. We're actually ahead of schedule as a family. So
Nice.
Awesome.
it morphs into this thing, and really it's just a positive vibe in your entire family when everybody, is in. And Julie, my wife, she has her machine at home. She'll be on that thing. It's a torture device. She played college basketball. Her knee. She actually is the one that probably is my running coach if I say I had one, because she ran when she still had good knees and had a love for it, and really taught me how to do it. And I fought her because I had crappy shoes that I'd bought that I thought were good running shoes because they had a swoosh on the side and they were Nike. And she said, Nike are crap running shoes. And I was like, well, they're mine, so I guess we're going to find out. And I proceeded to run for 6 months and get plantar fasciitis and really kind of torture myself. And the one day I grabbed my New Balance work shoes that had thicker padding, and I ran in them a couple of times, and it was amazing, the difference. And she just kind of said, well, are you ready to get the good shoes that I told you should do, that long ago? And I said, yeah, well, let's get some good shoes. And then she got me some much better running shoes. And at that point, it was like my world changed, because then I could run without having the pain of not being able to get up and walk in the next day, because that's where I was at. I was like, okay, I'm just old, and that's, you can't be fixed, but I can still do it. And the reality is it's just my stubbornness is, and everybody has this. It's like, there's people that want to help, but are we going to let them? I finally, the world beat me down to the point that I finally took good advice and got better shoes. And what happened is that injury I was able to run on it and still every day build strength. And now to this day, I can go do the miles that I can as I had a lot of, it'd be like an engine that had tons of carbon in it. You just got to run it hot for a long time and burn it all out until you finally get back in shape. And there's no secret. People are like, well, how'd you do it? Do you eat different? Do you do something else? It's like, no, I just got sick of my own crap and went and did it. Now, do I still eat bad? You bet. I eat stuff, and it's like, I'm going to have to, when I run, I'm going to feel the dirty fuel burn. Right, and I know it's going to be like crap, but I'm going to have this Mountain Dew because I can.
Yeah, Mountain Dew and a Snickers bar at a basketball game.
Yeah, but the thing is that I don't do that near as often as I used to, because there's a progressive penalty that comes with that. Yeah. I knew what it'd take to get it off, so I'm going to do my best to keep it off. So what happens is you start to think differently. You start, but I'm also a believer you have to enjoy life. Like, if you just deny yourself every pleasure, then why are you doing it? Yeah. Partake in what you want, but own what you partake in.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I think we're about ready to jump into another guilty pleasure and enjoy life here with our second beer of the day. I really apologize, Jerod, but you're going to enjoy these when they get to you. I promise they're on their way.
That's awesome. Hey, you know what? There's if beer doesn't get here, that's all right. I'll drink it whenever when it arrives.
There you go.
What do we got next, Dave?
Franklin Street Brewing Company, Manchester, Iowa. Again, this one is the Mango Fett, Mango New England style IPA again.
Another
So
IPA.
it's got a sweet can, cool label on it with like a little, I don't know if you call that a Yoda guy with a helmet.
It smells like an IPA. It's
It
lighter,
does.
lighter
This
color.
It is a little bit lighter. This one smells like I'm going to enjoy it.
It's a little sweeter, or a little fruit in there.
Oh, that's a aftertaste that is morphine.
It's not bad.
Morphine or
Mike-
morphine?
Morphine.
Morphine.
Oh, yeah,
you
morphine
guys
sounds
consume
good.
morphine on an annual basis.
Yeah.
I guess.
It's morphine. It's a changing aftertaste. It is.
It's morph ing.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the thing. There's some beers that you're drinking them and you're like, oh, this is cool, and then like 2 seconds later, this thing out of nowhere hits you, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this part.
That's the Tyrant of Darkness.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah, we did have that one.
We have one that's
oh, really? You've had that beer?
$15 a bottle. And
Why? Okay, I have a question. Whenever you see stuff like that, and I just genuinely am curious, do people value things, if they're the most expensive, do they just say that's the best? Is that what I think?
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of that. I do think there's instances to where there's been higher quality ingredients used. a longer distilling process or malting process or whatever it is that goes into making it more expensive than a Coors Light. But ultimately, I think most of the factor is just we're going to price it high so everybody thinks it's the best and it's regarded as the best and used on special occasions.
Yeah. I mean, I say that because I wonder if you did that with like animal protein. I mean, because I and everybody else can make up whatever story that we want about how great our operations are and we're better, better, worse, or different than somebody else. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's an animal from your place. But if you just went in with the mindset of like these craft brewers of we're going to price it so high that everybody's going to be like, well, it has to be good because why else would they price it there? And it doesn't matter if it's illogical. I'm removing all emotion from it. I'm just saying, like, from a business standpoint, why wouldn't you do that? Why haven't we done it yet?
I know people that do it with their cattle when they go to
craft beef.
When they go to the cattle sale, they'll buy it back at a higher price at $20,000 a head or something. So they say, well, this is the brother to the $20,000 sale.
Well, now that goes, that's a whole red
marketing
thing that goes on. But to some level, how could we not do that with the actual commodity?
Yeah.
I mean, on a micro scale, maybe.
No, that's a challenge. I could see that. Correct. In your own market, creating your own reputation, and just it comes down to marketing.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, because I think people want to buy from, I don't think it's a question of if they want to buy from individuals in their community or whatever. I think they do. I mean, the process doesn't exist where they can have access to it. But as soon as you solve that transition, the floodgates are open. I mean, I don't see any reason why people wouldn't buy from everyone local that they could. So it's just an interesting side that when people talk about what something costs, that's always my mind goes to. So if it costs that, does that mean it's the best? And if so, why?
Right.
Just sorry not the rabbit hole deal.
No, I like rabbit holes. It just reminded me of the pork producers there for a while went with the slogan, the other white meat. And talk about not branding yourself as the most desirable or highest. We're just the other podcast. We've got the Ag Uncensored podcast with Jerod, and Farm for Profit's just the other podcast. Yeah. Not how you do that. That's not how you achieve what we were just talking about.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
So we talk about a lot of times animal proteins in our private chat, and Jerod has a lot of good opinions on that. And you have a lot of opinions on that the current market is broken, correct? I mean, what?
Oh, yeah. No, I think...
What are we going to do?
I mean, the current market may be broken in a sense of how it assigns value, or maybe not even assigns, or who... It's not broken in that animals still move it. It still moves through the process, and that it's like a car with 4 seats, and one of them is really, really bad seat. It's like got springs sticking out of it, and no one wants to sit in it. But the person who knows how the car works and keeps everything going has to sit on that shitty seat.
Yeah,
I think Adam Sandler made this song.
I mean, that's a producer in any, and then let's put independent hog producers in there. You want to put cattle producers. You're producing this animal that then the only way it works is it has to be upsold at every level. So if I'm raising a stocker calf, for example, well, in order for it to work for the feedlot guy or somebody going to turn it out on wheat pasture, they've got to buy it cheap enough that they can margin it up, put their expense into it and then sell it at profit in order, long run, stay active, stay in business. Same way with the feedlot, same way with the packer. Well, all those are normal market communications that happen and everything's fine in that avenue. The problem arises is whenever you have the front end that is signaling to the upper level, like the cow producers or the hog producers are saying, hey, we're not getting enough. We need to get more for our product to build infrastructure to keep our stuff going. And then you can clearly see there's, very easy to see trail of the money that is not being allocated down the value chain. It just comes to this point and stops and goes sideways. And then it's held on the back end of the industry. Well, the front end needs that for maintenance, and also just, it's crazy when you get into the world of politics, and then you also get into media, you get into, a lot of other things that the market's not rewarding producers for taking care of the land and the livestock and the cattle. They're saying, just get it to us as cheap as possible. Yeah. Oh, you want to cram corn in them? Fine. We'll get you some more corn. No one's actually looking at the welfare of the animal to the point that it's and it's not that that's bad. It's just the way it is. And I'm not saying that, there's nobody's neglecting the welfare of the animal. I'm just saying, look at what we're doing to meet the ends. So we've done, we've made efficiency all the way through this beginning, to appease the back end. We have to keep making it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to keep everybody else's boat floating. Well, now we've reached a point where there's just no more room to give. Like, there's no more blood to take out of the producers. The only thing to do is to start selling cattle, downsizing herd, and that's the normal market that has went on. It's called the cattle cycle. It's happened for decades. Yeah. Nobody argues that that's the way it is. Everybody says that's how the cattle market is. Nobody says it's just flat effing broke. Yeah. That's where I'm at. Is it, in order to fix it, I think you have to go about looking at it from a very base perspective of, I raise an animal, and everybody wants what that animal can be. Everybody wants the beef. But the only people that can turn that cow into beef have so much power that they're only going to pay you whatever they want to give you. So that's where you're at. You either participate and sell it and don't capture the value, or you do their legwork and you find a slaughterhouse, you build a slaughterhouse, you find some method or means to move that animal out of that production. Now, if enough people do this on a big enough scale, if you take 4, 5, 6% away, there you effectively take the cattle out of those channels. That's going to take more slaughter capacity. There's things that don't exist now that have to exist for this to happen. But if enough people do it, then you move the needle just a little bit, you change that leverage game, and then you start gaining some of it back. And then maybe people get a little confidence. And I speak from this in a metaphorical sense of, like, whenever I started down my road of, like, I'm not where I need to be, and you start gaining a little confidence, and you start believing in yourself. If we could do something like that as an industry, the possibilities are endless, because then you start to get where value is properly aligned again. And I don't care that the people at the back end of the industry make money. I care that they make money at the expense of everybody at the front end.
Yeah.
Charge more for the product if you have to. Quit taking it out of our damn hide, because there's not anything left to give.
Chip Flory on AgriTalk this morning said, I think packer margins were still well north of $400 a head. And I know they were, I don't know, double that at the beginning of the pandemic.
They've made so much money for years that there's no. Here's the thing, and I've said this on Mackenzie Johnson's interview I did with her just recently, is like, everybody that is there to speak for the industry is not speaking for them properly, in my opinion. Just because nothing has changed. Literally nothing has changed in decades. There's no future for anybody that wants to get in it, other than if you want to get in and have a cow and take pictures and put it on Instagram and say, I have a cow. Great.
So what do we do? Is the disruptor in the packing?
So I saw that Chad Ingalls, friend of the podcast, new Iowa State legislature member, so got voted in this fall. Just signed his first.
Good dude. He's a good dude.
Oh yeah, so you might have seen it. Just signed his first bill.
Tanner's got his.
Sorry, I'm plugged in. So just signed his first bill, and it's to basically allocate funds to help educate people to become butchers, to be able to run local butcher shops, to be able to get more of this set up in the state of Iowa, to have our meat processed locally and not, like I said, not in the chain.
Yeah. Well, and that will be met with opposition. I mean, I'm not a politician. I'm not a lobbyist. I've spent a little bit of time in the Oklahoma State Capitol with some legislative issues dealing with groundwater out here. I'm marginally in it. I've seen behind the scenes of corporations that I'm in the know enough to know that most of what happens is just basically on who pays the right politician to open and close the gates of commerce. And that hasn't changed since the inception of any form of regulation. That's human nature. That gatekeepers exist. I get it. And when an industry is making a ton of money, they do a lot of things to ensure that those gates remain closed. I mean, so you have to get creative, and that's why every time people talk about, well, we just have to work together within the industry. We have to work together. You hear that over and over and over. It's like, well, guess what? Working together doesn't work anymore. So we need to go rogue. And if that means, look, I know people in groups. It is amazing the groundswell of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. There's people that are learning how to butcher their own. There's people that are starting to contemplate, can I build a shed where I could slaughter in and sell direct without any kind of within regulation. There's ways within rules to do stuff, or if enough people just get sick of it, then they won't go to these figurehead organizations, and they'll actually speak up for themselves.
I'm going to argue that the hog market used to be the home small farm, and it went total corporate to where they're doing that. How far are we out with the cattle industry before that happens? Because I'm going the other way, that I think that eventually the person with all the data, the person with all the stuff, they're going to win. It's us and them right now. Cargill, Packerland, all the major packers out there, 3 of them are owned by foreign entities. I'm afraid that they're going to take the market share and just start getting half the cattle in the feedlot are owned by the packer already.
Well, that's the thing. I've actually studied and understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, there's so many shell games that go on within the industry to, justify this and that. And yeah, we can keep this going if so-and-so, I mean, it's not vertically integrated, the beef industry, but it mimics it in that there's these little agreements between this and that. And those were forged out of necessity. It's not like, the feedlots need the packing houses, and the packing houses they need to make that agreement. Any business would be smart to make an agreement with that. Now, what that also does is it makes captive supply where some people don't, have access to a market because the market is essentially full. You guys understand that in the hog business. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if the reason why everybody can't get in is because everybody's trying to go in the same door. If we no longer, it doesn't take a big percentage to swing that leverage back in cattlemen's favor. That's ultimately the only way it works is you have to kill off enough producers, or you just get droughts. You get rid of the numbers, and then everybody's like, "Oh, we don't have enough cattle. Now let's go pay to keep." It's like a round of Survivor. And I've been through this in droughts. I've been through it in markets. I've been through it in everything. I've had opportunities to sell $7 corn 2 or 3 times in my life, and multiple times there were offsetting things in the industry, but. So it's a repeated thing that happens, and it's not necessary in a sense that we can do it better if we just enough people just abandon the way it is and go rogue. You still have to live, you still have to exist, you still have to feed cattle. But if you took 10 of them, like if I had 100 head and I sold 10 direct, well, enough people do that starts to become a real thing. So
yep. Tanner, are you going to give us a pee break too, or are you just going to take one yourself? He just walked away.
Busted. Dave took one too.
Well, I guess I'm just the one left out. I don't want to miss anything.
All right, let's do that. That's normally what we do, Jerod, is we pause here, usually about the time my bladder triggers it, which was about 5 minutes ago. We'll pause and rejoin here in a couple minutes and kick this thing right back off, so that way Corey can use the bathroom and doesn't miss anything.
Hey, that sounds great. Thank you. All right. Can you guys hear me again?
Yep.
Oh, good.
I was getting razzed when I was in the bathroom from a guy on TikTok Live.
So, is TikTok still live now? That's awesome.
Yeah, the whole time.
So, okay, excuse me. I'm looking at the screen. How does this work? You've got a whole bunch of people on the right, and is this like
you can
TikTok
see
users?
Yep, you can see the screen. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, they're just in and out, in and out, in and out. But
yeah, I don't know. This software we use, Lula, Loola. It'll let you stream. You can stream simultaneously on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, all at once. So
awesome.
you take this.
So are you guys streaming on YouTube as well, or just TikTok?
We haven't yet. We're just kind of just a second week testing this.
Yep.
So
yeah. See, I tried to get Zoom to where I could do broadcast live, and I actually figured out how to do it a year ago, but I just never went through it. But I was trying to figure out how to do like a morning show type thing where you have a guest on and all that crap, but it just, I don't know, went away. But I think it's totally possible if you could schedule it and do it right.
Yep.
Yeah. This if you got enough cables, you can make anything work. I can tell you that.
This is my studio, and I don't mind. I'll just show you kind of. This is it's actually doubles as like our kids' basically middle day drop off studio / whatever.
Yeah.
But we finally got fiber here. I'm so excited because I'm actually like I'm one of it's like I'm one of the I'm not a muggle anymore with my shitty internet.
Because you actually bought an old building in town, right?
Yeah, I bought this for $4,000 from a friend of mine. He had a trucking company and he built another barn and office, and we actually originally bought this building together as a tax delinquent auction. We were just kids, we were just messing around. He's the same friend that I bought an RV with, so he's a good friend. And by the way, RVs are a blast. Go buy one, but have an exit strategy for them because at some point they turn into a liability. And that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so yeah, I bought this building from a friend, and it had already been renovated. And I've done that again. I bought another building in a town next to me and turned it into kind of a little office. It's almost free real estate, in these small towns. They're just giving up on them. So, and I'd like to buy another building and turn it into a gym. It's just because I can do it out here.
Well, for
literally
$4,000,
do it for nothing.
yeah, $4,000 a pop. That sounds pretty good.
I'm sure Dave would love if the podcast bought their own building for $4,000, and then that way we wouldn't have to take over his boardroom every time here at the Whitaker Marketing Group Studios.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It was just worked, and it just so happens at the same town that our kids go to school in. So, in fact, earlier the door opened, some kids came in. It's two doors down. My kids go to after school, little church youth group. So when they walk from school, they go to there. Then they come in here, and drop their bags off, come back, and it just is. And it all is. We bought this originally to do like a podcast or hang, and all these different things have happened in our lives, and now it's like just like a little hangout kind of node in our lives. And I also happen to do podcast here, so it's interesting how that works out. But
how many times has Snark slept on that couch then?
One,
two, just one,
two. Wait, no, maybe two. That's a good question. Rupert, man, he's a card. He'll show up and he'll be like, "Hey, man, I'm like 50 miles away," and he'll show up at your door, and he's like a lost homeless person. He's my favorite. Like he is. I said this. He's my favorite homeless person. He'll show up and you'll feed him and take care of him. And I've heard this from multiple people, and Rupert would laugh his ass off if he heard us saying this too, because he's exactly that way. But yeah, he'll come through on cattle tour and show up. And in fact, he did a great podcast with me. He's a very open and honest, genuine guy. It's I hadn't talked to him in a while, but he always floats around.
He's been hanging out in Minnesota a lot lately.
I saw that. I've been seeing that on Twitter. Another thing that I caught on Twitter is you have used the hashtag Low Pop Mafia a couple of times. Can you explain what that is behind that? I think I got a pretty good idea, but for the listeners.
Yeah, no, that kind of spawned off of something back whenever I was doing a lot more dryland corn. I don't know if I'm the one that started it or somebody else. It just kind of morphed into something that caught on, and it really was across our social, on Twitter. There's a lot of people who are trying. Somebody actually told me the theory of planting corn at a really low population, and my first foray into it was planting a half circle at 15,000 plants per acre. And I don't know that I remember the variety. It might have been like it wasn't 1197. Yeah, I remember it was no, I don't. I forget. Anyway, it was a DeKalb number, 6355. That's what it was. Anyway, I planted it at 15,000 population and watered it, kind of took care of it. It was more of an experimental thing. A guy said, try this, and I did it. And when I was running the combine, because I thought if it makes 70 bushel acre, that'll kind of pencil and make a little bit. I'm just looking for a substitute for Milo. And this was my first foray into it. And I started running the combine, and it started pegging at 140, 150. And I was like, damn, this yield monitor screwed up. Like, there's no way this corn's making that. It's at 15,000 population. Like, everything I knew in everything I'd known about farming, and I'd been farming for a long time at this point, and was telling me, well, your stuff's wrong. Something's just not right. But, it was big old ears. It was like you'd think, isolated plants. Sometimes there were 2 years. And there was actually enough, extra yield because of the additional weight per ear per plant that the average of that field was actually 150 bushel, but there were spots that were going over 200, and there were a lot of, depending on the variety and the flex. I had 3 or 4 different varieties. One was 150 bushel, one was like 160 or 70, and then the top one averaged 180 or 90. But this is all, the entire field was planted at 15K. And so that was a real experience that happened. And so when I'm cutting and the yield monitor goes to 200 bushel on 15K, I'm like, okay. I start trying to pick it apart. What's wrong here? This is an anomaly because it doesn't make sense. because it doesn't exist. That's my mindset at that time. And so you start investigating, you start talking with people who do something similar. And that's where the hashtag came up of, it was like, hey, put this hashtag and you can always go back to it and kind of reference, just as a way of cataloging some of the organic research, and like some guys up in Kansas, Bart Parks, he did some low population stuff. The guy who told me, Russell Isaacs, a great dude, he's over in Beaver County in Oklahoma. He's the one who keyed me into of actually trying to start it. So he'd be the OG of him and his crop consultant. I think his name's Mark Voth. They're good dudes. They were the ones that actually told me about it. And then I proceeded to kind of use my social platform to blow it up and sent it out there. And a lot of other people started trying it. And there's different results. What I found is that, you can definitely flex a plant and get way more production per seed per acre. And there's things that we haven't even touched that I think are tangible, real gains. I think that basically are ignored by the industry because it's convenient. You need to sell units of seed, and that means that you want everybody planting 30 or 40,000 seeds per acre. There's no glory in selling less seed. But what I also found is the reality is I could plant more acres of corn. So then I ended up buying more seed, and then we ran into droughts. And I challenged my luck planting dryland corn, and I had, I hit a win, then I hit an okay, then I hit a couple of not okays, and after a while you're like, I'm going to quit putting resources because I've answered the question as far as I'm concerned. I know what low population is possible. Mm-hmm. I don't need to go prove it to anybody else. If somebody else wants to keep doing it, they can go research that. Yep. But I'm satisfied with my answer, and I moved on to the next thing. Is just like, how do we further market this, new knowledge of using less resources to maybe make more of an end product, hopefully animal protein, that then be marketed to an end user. So that's where it's morphing to in my head. But originally that's where Low Pop Mafia kind of started.
Nice.
There you go.
I want to talk more farming, but what do you got in front of me, Tanner? This is intriguing.
So about as long as we waited to have this interview with Jerod is as long as this bottle of peanut butter whiskey from Canada has been sitting here at the Whitaker Marketing Group studios. So we've been waiting for just the right moment to open this up, and we did. We popped it open today.
All right. We're going to get lit. This is going to be awesome.
Sask Prairie. All these letters are missing.
When I was up there, what amazes me about Saskatchewan, it reminds me a lot of the Texas Panhandle. In fact, Regina, I thought was an awful lot like Amarillo. It was just north. It was amazing the parallels that are there.
This came from Saskatoon, I think, because we
got this when we were talking to Andy Pastor, and we were trying to get some Canadian beer, and that didn't come, and then someone found some Canadian whiskey, and then Dave's buddy up there.
Buddy.
Yeah, champion auctioneer up there. He's the international champion.
We've got a sip of the actual straight whiskey.
The actual straight
and
peanut
then
butter.
What do you do in this cup?
I put grape crush.
Just like from the old school, like orange crush.
So you're
trying
to do like
the old school grape crush,
okay? Like peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
All right,
so
let's give it a try.
So I just tried that. That is
straight. It's sharp.
That is peanut butter.
It is. It's full of peanut butter,
and it's not. It's very sweet. It's not harsh at all.
No, I could drink more of this, but it's
dangerous.
I think you guys should. I think you should each take like 3 shots of this, and then after we're done, we're gonna go have a run together.
All right,
we're like a communal run. We're all gonna go do a couple miles.
No excuses.
It's gonna be awesome.
See how we get on
us here.
We're drinking. We're having shots, and we're running.
I enjoy those post beer runs. It makes me weird, but sometimes we'll have a bunch of beers at Golf League, and I'll come home, and then I'll go for a 5K, do a 3-mile run, and it feels really good. I always wanted to do one of those beer run challenges where you see the race where you got to run a quarter, drink a beer, run a quarter, drink a beer, run a quarter. You basically do a mile.
Yeah.
Timed it. I think I'd actually be pretty good at that.
I was my first year at college. I lived in the dorms, and my roommate I did not choose. We got paired. Was a massive lineman. He was a backup lineman for Iowa State. And he chugged a Busch Light and went and worked out every night. Oh. Chugged it. Didn't drink it, just chugged it, slammed it, went and worked out at the Lead Rec Center. And
I know that when we were in high school, we were a lot like, I hate to say it, like, you ever watch Friday Night Lights? That's kind of how like high school football in the Oklahoma Panhandle was. So, we did all kinds of things that we weren't supposed to that involved alcohol, and we still went and played football all the time. So I think that you can basically you can do exactly that, enjoy alcohol and still perform athletically.
Do you think there was any, you made me think any alcohol involved? Did you hear about the Tiger Woods deal?
7 in
7:20 in the morning. Maybe after effects.
But he just got done. He was filming with David Spade and someone else that day, the day before. So did they go out and tie one on? And
maybe
I don't know. You don't really see them just accidentally going off the road,
So what do you guys?
Tiger's prone to that.
Yeah, no shortage. He just needed some extra publicity, so time to get in a car accident.
Yeah.
What did you think, Dave? What did you think of the grape soda with the peanut butter whiskey?
It's good with the grape soda.
I think it's too much of the grape.
I see what I like
It's
sugary stuff.
overpowering.
You got the bottle right in front of you. Top it off.
Oh God, those are all bad influences.
That's exactly what you do. You have to keep blending until it's right, and you just accidentally run out of cup. That's a problem.
Oh shoot!
I like that.
Let's get back into the farming side, because I am genuinely intrigued. Like, so what all do you grow for crops down there?
Oh boy. Well, I'll tell you what we're currently growing, and then I can kind of give you just a rundown of what I've grown in the past. This year we're going to do oats, probably followed by Milo. We'll still have a little corn. I currently have some wheat. The wheat all looks like wheat does in this time of year. It looks like crap. Let's see. I believe that's kind of just the litany for next year. There'll be a forage sorghum. I'll grow hay. We basically anything that we can do with the farming operation that we can then double leverage back into our ranching side of things. It's always done with the mindset like if we grow corn, it's great. It's a cash crop, but we also get residual income in the form of grazing and utilizing that resource, not having to go feed the hay or raise hay. It's just we supplement protein, and so we try to use as much crop residue as possible to offset the feed needs of our herd. And sometimes we turn the cattle out and let them do the harvesting. Sometimes we shred and bale it. Sometimes we have to raise and we have to stockpile forages, just like everybody saw in these massive snowstorms. Like you need resources and forages to support the animals that you have. So therein lies kind of a balance and a mixture of what I do on about 3,000 some acres. And I do it underneath some irrigated pivots, some dry land, and there's different. It's almost like you're playing different games out here. You've got some dry land you have to address one way. You have irrigated that has super high potential, so you treat it like maybe a corn circle accordingly, or maybe you take that good resource. You've got a good well that you could raise one circle of corn, or I could raise 2 good circles of Milo, or maybe you feed, and you have all these pieces. It's kind of like playing chess, and you start to, and then you have cattle on the backside that you're using the resources of the ranch or the farming operations to supplement and feed those cattle. They've got to then in turn, a benefit is I can use the cattle to go clean up corn. If there's a bunch of down corn, cattle clean it up. I don't have a volunteer problem. Cattle on corn stalks, everybody says it's a bad thing. We've done it the entire 25 years, and I can say, and I could go grab a trophy. I don't know, somewhere in here. In 2015, I won Oklahoma's state yield contest, and I actually was better than Kansas and Colorado. So as far as my farming accolades, I can go grab it. It's rather 304 bushel of the acre or something. I won the NCGA one year and have placed second or third. So I played the game. I know how to raise corn. It's not like, I can do that. I know how to do the dance. I admire the guys that want to go grab 500, 600 bushel corn. It doesn't suit my purposes anymore, but I've done it. I've played the game and won as good as I can win, So with that said, I also grow sunflowers. I grew some last year. I've had an entire year where I grew nothing but confection and oil sunflowers back whenever corn crashed. And I was like, natural gas was high, water was expensive to pump. And so I elected to grow all sunflowers one year and not corn. People thought I was crazy. I still maintain I lost less money on sunflowers than they did on corn, but some people are still in business and some aren't, so right. I'm still here. Anyway, with that being said, I've done sunflowers. I've never done cotton. That's kind of stayed. That's the stay. Evil. I don't have any use for cotton in my world. I grew Milo. Oh boy, I've grown triticale. Any kind of forage crop, millet. Some Sudan, some older crops, a lot of hay. When I was a kid, I spent a ton of time. My granddad had alfalfa, so my summers were spent swathing and baling alfalfa. And if you ever seen the old Heston big stackers, yeah. When I was a kid, I used to ride them, and they would make the loaves. And then granddad had a one of the 60A Heston where you back it up, and it was like a bread slicer. You've seen those in it, slice it off, and it would go out of conveyors. So we'd feed cattle in that thing. So, as a kid, I was out there, riding stuff with my granddad. I was, hay equipment and everything else. So I've been doing it my whole life in that regard. But I've seen a lot of things in agriculture, and I've raised a lot of stuff, and I've put cattle on it. I've used cattle to graze it. I've taken the produce and fed it to cattle. I've seen enough to know that a lot of this works in its own way, but it's all dysfunctional in its own business too. So
I grew up with a Heston stacker. We did that for corn stalks. That's what we did for all of our bedding for the hogs.
Yeah,
Yep.
we had granddad had the one that had the one in front that would move back and forth. It was a giant, basically spinner, which it was a blower. It caught it. And there was other ones with a paddle, and I think in fact we still got an old one sitting on a lot that I have never hauled off yet that had the paddles, and they would use it for corn stalks because they would just throw it up there. And
it had knives like a shredder.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing, but it was built out of necessity because at one point they needed to move forage from the field to the edge, and that was what they had.
Yep.
And it even maintained use. I remember when I took over the operations, the stuff was still here. We didn't use it anymore because we went to round balers, but I experienced that. I actually ran that equipment, so I feel like I've been over a lot of acres and a lot of time. And I've done it through before auto steer, before all this stuff. I built my own strip till rig from scratch at one point, and so I've played with that. And now it's basically farming is kind of like you open the app, order this. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I can order the equipment I need online, get it all here. Even you buy it from local people, you put it together, you go, put in the program. The outcome. There's nothing really new or challenging about it, honestly. It's just it's like getting better at playing a video game.
Yeah.
And it's sad because there should be more flavor in life than that. There's no flavor in that. And that's just where my brain is at now.
I look at it too, and you're growing like 10 different crops, and we focus on 2 here,
Yeah.
And so like we're even a smaller video game.
Even whenever,
Only
even if
2
I'm
levels.
doing 10, even with that, I've leveled up to the point that I can raise the animals, I can feed them, I can take the animal completely from birth to the point that it's ready to go to somebody's plate. I just can't get it on the plate. I have all that built. There's nothing left to build. I just can't go any further. So now that's where I'm at in my operation is how do I do flanking? How do I get around that? Because you can't go through it.
Yeah.
So until we get to the point where we can go around that or get enough of an influence to make a market move where there's not so much leverage, or if it just continues to the point that it chokes people out and enough people go bankrupt and the cattle numbers go down, woohoo, then we're right back where we started. And everybody who makes money at that point is not going to care that the packer's still making $400 a head. They just don't.
Yep.
They don't care. If they cared, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Yep.
Right.
We're going to be in the same boat as the hog people. Not saying that's, I'm sorry it happened, but that's just not where I want to be. You know?
Did I hear you have not grown soybeans?
No, I have not done soybeans. That's it's hysterical. Is I watch the soybean market and I have no involvement in it other than I guess sunflowers kind of price off of soybeans in a weird roundabout way. So any kind of oil or feed demand, I pay attention to that. But
well, you're an expert on the market, so you have to pay attention to the soybean. You have to tell the
funniest
Facebook
thing.
guys.
Well, I've been on Twitter talking trash on markets for years, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't, and sometimes you're right, and sometimes you aren't. I mean, I've just been lucky and fortunate enough to be right lately. That's all it is. It's dumb. But also there's an entertaining aspect to it. Like, for example, I'll pull back the curtain and just show you this one. It's I'll go on Twitter and say grains seem stronger today.
You said that yesterday and today.
Yeah, I've been saying it for 10 months now because it was one of those things that I really believed that the market was going to go up. I kind of said, I think we'll have $10 soybeans. And it was a lot of it. You can go back and listen to the podcast I've recorded a year ago with people. And we had this discussion. So it was kind of just one of those things that it was my belief. I didn't know it was going to go there, but it kept going up. So I would kind of troll people like, hey, grain seems stronger today. And what really was amazing to me, and social media will do this, it will reveal people's bias or even their positions or what they, it's just human nature. People can't, it's like playing poker. There's tells everywhere. Yeah. And there's the reality. That's the traders watch it. I've learned to watch it. It's just something that happens. And you can start to see a lot of people who have sold too much grain too early and it's going against them. And I've been this guy, man. I can relate to it so much because I've been there. I've been that dude that's like, I delivered $4 corn when it was people were cashing $8 checks. I honored my contracts. I paid my dues. I've been there. I had the crap sandwich. So whenever it came time, we're like, they're passing the plate. Do you want to sign up? I'm like, back that shit up. I don't want any part of that. No, I don't. I want to just throw it in reverse. I am not a big fan of like cashing in that value right now because I think there's so many unknowns in the market, and that was what's predicated my belief. So, and every time I kind of was like, there'd be a big day, and I was like, grain seems stronger, and it's based on I do believe that it's there, but it's just pointing out the obvious, and it's on days that the markets are just ripping, and what happens? The tell that I see is that people you can just get on tilt because you can tell they're having to make a margin call, and they just had to make a margin call the day before, and they're having to make a margin call the next day, and they know if it keeps going up, they're going to have to make a margin call. And guess what happens? It went down today, and those same people who are just like doom and gloom are kind of like starting to talk a little trash, like, oh, I guess the market's not going up now, huh? Is it? and I'm sitting there. I'm not a soybean. No, don't have anything to do with it, but I can see that dynamic start to play, and I just like, oh boy, they haven't learned the lesson yet.
Yep.
And it goes down, and then it's like, here we go again, and the pattern repeats itself again and again and again, and we're not even close to where I think we're going to take off from. And people can call me a lunatic. I'm okay. I say my piece whenever I need to. But I do think we're just in a giant inflationary thing that could take off. Now, that could be derailed at any moment by some crazy policy that's implemented, out of left field by who knows what. There's no guarantees in anything. I can tell you what I think is going to happen. And so far, that's been right. But,
I told
that's
Tanner,
where we're at.
I told Tanner a few months ago. I said, Jerod in our private chat saying 570 corn. I think it was like 450, 470 corn at the time. He's saying I think it's 570 corn and $17 beans.
$17 beans.
It's actually that was 680 corn and 17.
Well, yeah,
beans.
you've moved your.
Did I move it
position.
Well, that's where I'm at now.
You moved your position up. Yeah. I think you did say it was going to go to 6, but you thought there was going to be
a line of resistance
that we couldn't get through at 570 for a while, and then it's going to up.
You said there was an emotional one at $4, and then a line of resistance at 570, right? If I'm remembering correctly,
something like that.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
so,
I mean, and 680 to me, where that number comes from? It's when last time we were having these massive bull markets, I was actively trading, and I've had moments that have been great. I've had the moments when you want to stick your head in the sand because you've lost everything you made, on that prior trade or whatever. I've done enough that I don't do it very often, but I remember trading corn myself in my own account when it was around 680, and it was such a magnet for the market for so long. And when I look back over the history of it, I don't know what it is. It's just a weird dynamic number that keeps coming up in a lot of systems, and so I pay attention to it. And typically, as weird as it sounds, enough people watch the same program, they talk about the same stuff. You see it in culture, you can see it in markets where it becomes self-fulfilling. It's like technical markets, people that trade just on technicals. Well, yeah, you can draw the Fibonacci numbers, you can draw the sequence, you can draw the lines, you can study Gans numbers, you can study all these disciplines of how to do technical analysis, and they're all going to come up with essentially the same answer of these things follow the same fundamental pattern over and over. And then that's repeatable. Then it becomes a pattern that repeats itself because it repeats itself. So understanding that markets really have sometimes nothing to do with anything that's actually going on is how you get there.
Yeah, everything else is just little blips in the radar, right? I mean,
it really is, and that's the thing is you have to step back and say, where are we really going with this? And where I look at it, and this helps me a bunch, is where am I going to sell a year's worth of my work at? What is my worth to me? And I'll promise you, whenever I was not like in healthy and not in the greatest shape, it was like, oh, this is a soft point that's like a nice, easy, I'm going to cash out here. And yet, if you have the mentality of like, hey, I'm going to put it, I'm going to endure a little bit more stress, I'm willing to take the punishment, then you're willing to, maybe that's something that I'm looking at, is that I'm willing to roll the dice and say, I believe this. Yeah. And so I'm sliding my money on the table. Let's see where we go. And I'm not contracted. I'm just not, that's how I'm playing this game. I'm not buying it. I've bought it and sold it. I've traded it a little bit, but my game is just don't sell. Come and get it.
Yeah,
that's you want the world wants the market. The world has tons of money floating around. We're going to see what the value of commodities are, and my cards, I'll turn them upside down. Like, come get the grain. If you want it, come get it.
Yep. You run on a positive basis down there, right? For corn, at least.
Yeah, we're right now. I think we're 45, 50 over on 25 over for new crop, I believe, locally. On this is like an elevator.
But old crop, you're $6.
I think old crop now. If you have it in your own storage or in a bag, I believe I heard the basis locally is 85 over. Now that's like if you had corn sitting in a truck and you FOB delivered,
wow.
It would be 85 over to like feedlots and feed mills and
how far
else.
Is that from you?
20 mile. I mean, right there. I own no grain bins. I own no grain bags. I sit on the board of our local elevator. I'm happy to haul it there, and that's kind of where maybe the communal aspect of that. I know there's money to be made if you do the diligence and get the basis play. You can go get a grain bag and go make a little bit more money, or put your money in your co-op and have some families and more people in your community. It's a choice. Everybody makes their own. I don't judge it. It's just that's mine, And do I give up a little bit of revenue? Probably. It's worth it in the end because then there's more people there's more kids in our school. There's more things going on. So, and to be honest, that's something that really sunk in during the pandemic because I think the illusion that I had, and I'll just share, I don't know about anybody else, but my illusion was that, even though I'm here working, there's always this thing out there that is somebody else is, there's always something going on. There's always something cool happening everywhere else. Well, that's true. There is that. But whenever the world shut down and we kept going, you suddenly realize that you've been just as cool as everybody else all along. There hadn't been anything that has been going on there. You actually can just enjoy living where you're at. You don't have that I got to go. You're not missing anything because all of a sudden the curtain was pulled back on like a New York City or, the big areas where you see all this giant culture. You realize there's no culture at all. There's nothing there. It's just a figment of your imagination. So,
all right.
That's a long rabbit hole. There you go.
Well, I'm sitting here in my math trying to figure out what it would cost us to haul grain down to your area, and if we could make a positive 85 cents basis pay, and we can't do it. That's what I was sitting here doing in my head.
Well, what I can. Here's what I can key you on my understanding of the physical grain markets. By the time you arbitrage in your mind what's going to work, it's been arbitraged 40 times before it gets to that. So, I mean, there's always a game to be played, but
right.
It's always being played by people with better traders, frankly. I mean, there's the guys that trade the physical grain, hats off to them. Yeah. I don't want that job. They do it very well. They deal with actual risk in the physical product. It's a thing, it's a real job. I mean, I know they catch a lot of slack, but somebody has to do it. And I don't, good luck to them, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to change topics for a second. You got long locks of hair there. Are you rocking the mullet?
Oh, that's right.
I am, yeah, a lot. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
About a year
since
I've cut my hair.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Look at here's ours.
Oh, you guys got your mullet. Yeah, so enlighten me on this. You guys say you're the
They're the mullet of ag podcast is what we've called ourselves because Tanner and Dave do the Farm for Profit podcast. That started in 2019, and that was purely business, straightforward, business in the front. And then I came on in June 2020 or May 2020, and that was the party. That was the Farm for Fun side. So it's business and party. So that's what we're doing.
I can put mine up, I guess. Is that what we're going to do?
I don't know. We're
yeah, no,
we're doing this today.
There you go. I'll show mine off.
All right.
There you go. It's all real. The thing is that, I had long hair in high school. I was kind of, we live out here in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't anything for anybody in 1995 to have a mullet. It wasn't that crazy of a concept. Now, when I went to college, I realized that nobody in Stillwater, Oklahoma wore a mullet. so that went away real quick and just never really went back to it. And interesting thing happened. I believe it was right at the end of 19 when the coronavirus was still in other countries. Well, I kind of think I had it. I think I picked it up flying out of Canada, maybe through airports in Thanksgiving. Our son got it, or what basically I think it was. You got really sick. I got really sick last January. I was in the course of losing weight, and I actually lost about 20 or 30 pounds. I got down to about 215, really sick, viral pneumonia. And the funny thing was, is I had been running for 4 or 5 months. I had already started down this path of like getting better, but eventually got better from that, and then just went down. And then once I got better from that, I shaved my head. Because I was kind of like, I'm sick. I've lost a bunch of weight. I'm trying to, get my life in shape, all this crap, and just start growing it out. And then Rona hit, like the pandemic hit, and we're out there, and of course the world shut down. So for like 6 months, no one could get a haircut. So you remember, like when this started, everybody had a little bit of a mullet, right?
Yeah. And
then the world kind of came back, and everybody's getting their hair cut, and I was kind of like, I'm just gonna let it go.
There you go.
And the longer it went, the more you start to get the look again, like, who's this guy? What's wrong with him? Why has he got that hair? And so then just my defiant nature took over, and it's like, well, I guess I'm gonna keep growing it. So
Julie,
at some point I'll cut it, but now it's just became a thing.
Is Julie a fan of that?
Yeah, she's fine with it. She's like, yeah, you can put it up on the ponytail. She's fine either way.
I think you should bring the beard back because you had a beard at one
no,
time with the mullet.
No, I can't. It's now that I've went back to clean shaven. I guess I might be an extremist because I can do that for years, like just grow my hair and then shave it and be like, I'm shaving my head now. And go there.
Well,
I think I get bored with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I got a haircut appointment tomorrow, and I was thinking about asking her what I need to do, first steps to getting my mullet started. I figure if we're going to be the Mullet of Ag podcast, I feel like I need to have a real mullet.
I'm serious. I've tried for like 3 years in a row to have a mullet. I would start in the spring and not cut it through planting, and it would get like we're spraying in the summer, June. It's just hot as shit, and it's kind of it's getting on my neck, and I'm just sweating, and it's bothering my ears and stuff. And I start out with short hair, right? And so it doesn't grow equivalent. So I'm like, oh, cut it into a mullet, and it just looks like crap. Like there's a period in between there. You can't get to the. You have to just bite your tongue.
I'm wondering how long it's going to last because every teenage kid out there has a mullet rocking right now. I mean, it is a trend right now. You know what you do? Is if you don't want your kids to have a mullet, is you grow a mullet, because if your dad has it, there ain't a kid in the southern hemisphere
Should we make a
that's going to wear that.
Should we make a bet right now? Can you do that as your job? Should we see how long it takes to cut our hair? You can cut your hair tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow.
You guys make this bet.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I'm all about that. This is literally a year. I don't know. I don't know how you compare, but that's a year's worth of growth. That's right there.
That's good.
I asked the haircut lady the other day. She said a ½ inch per month is what your hair grows.
Okay. So that'd be 6 inches a year.
Yeah.
I'm good with math.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'll let you do it. Yeah, I'm off the clock right now.
So we've been on here for about 2 hours. We probably need to start wrapping it up.
I know how this goes because you do this. You start having conversations, and you're not going to be like,
oh, we could keep going.
Yes, we just did what?
We could go to midnight because we have not covered near the stuff. So we'll have to have you on again for sure. But I do want to talk about one thing. Hedge or bust. Hedge or bust. Get hedge or bust. Head whisperer to Corn Warriors.
I wonder if he's going to do it. This is Barstool Sports. Hedge one. How is Hedge going to go? Where are we going with it? Is he going to get on? What do you think?
I don't know. So what's the whole scandal? I was trying to read through some tweets today. He was
first. I'm gonna pause you. Start. I like what you're saying with Barstool Sports because this is totally something we can bet on. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
El Presidente. Yeah. This corn F's. Let's go.
So anyway, I don't know the story either. I've only seen a little bit about it.
I honestly don't know what it is. Steven's a friend of mine. He's a longtime Twitter friend. I've met him in several occasions in person. Consider him a good friend.
So Corn Warriors is a show on YouTube.
I guess. I don't know. I have no clue. I've never watched it. I hate to say that. I have no clue what Corn Warriors is. So I have no stake in this game.
I have watched it. I have watched it, probably not religiously, but I've seen the first few seasons, and I've recently tuned back in.
It seems like a good thing. I mean, I've never heard anything bad about it.
Have you ever seen Gold Rush?
Yeah.
Well,
on Discovery?
That's where I put it. It's kind of like a Gold Rush, but with combines, right?
Gold Rush with combines, yep. And it was at first it was a little cheesy, trying to get Dave Hula to poke fun at Randy Dowdy, like, oh, I'm gonna get you this year, David, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like that's not how it really is. But anyway,
I get you. There's a point you have to be like, come on, are we gonna be real? Or are we gonna be real?
So That's all for TV, right? So Steven has made this. He lost his Twitter account, and now he's coming back, and he only has like 1,200. He only has like 1,200 followers. He had like 10 or 12,000.
Yeah, he's been on there almost. I'll give you a old school backstory on Steven. He's the first time I ever met him. We were interacting. And I probably had 500 followers or something, 1,000, and he had like 20 or 40, and he was trying to chime in with jokes, and he would say it, and I would laugh or something, but I would say something of a similar joke, and it would get tons of likes, and he would be like, "Dude, what's going on? Why is?" Because like he got it. He was funny, and he was really pulling some good stuff, good material, and he was never going anywhere. And I said, well, you actually have to follow them for them to see your interactions. And it was like, bing. And he was like, oh man, that's what it works. And he started realizing that you just actually, it was an interactive thing, that it wasn't that he wasn't funny, it's that people weren't seeing his stuff. And I may be remembering it wrong, but it's close enough. If he doesn't like it, tough, he's got to go try to make his own story up.
I doubt he listens, but
I know, but that's the thing, is like, that's how far back I know him from. And so I know when he starts busting somebody's like chops, he's just messing with them. He's he's a genuinely kind-hearted, great person, individual. He tons of integrity. Now he also is a loves to poke the bear and have fun. So let's just call it what it is. He was like, hey, I want to get on your show. And they were like, oh, I don't know. Who's this? What is it? And it's mayhem is ensued. And it's hysterically funny to me because it's just chaos.
Yeah. It's like this 1,200 follower account come on. It's like, I want to be on the show. And they're like, yeah, who is this guy? And then, but like his old crowd has started like come to his
right. He's getting votes.
You don't understand this. He's been around since Twitter started, so he knows literally everybody, the same number of people I do. We were in the same circles, and just his account got crapped on or got canceled because he did the head nod videos and it had copyrighted music, so they canceled his account, which is hysterically funny because now he has to start over again. Yeah,
and he's been struggling. He's like, why am I not at 10,000 again?
Right.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because Sean Harmon leaves. And then comes back, and he's got 6,000-7,000 followers the next day.
I've had this discussion. If I get kicked off Twitter, and it's probably going to happen, I mouth off. And just be honest, I say too much stuff I shouldn't, and I'll probably say something that they're going to be like, "Bye."
Yep.
I'm going to just not come back. Like if somebody kicks me off their deal, I'm not coming back. I had a 1,100 follower Parler account that went away. So
yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. That's impressive on Parler.
Yeah. It was kind of a active joke. I would go on there every day and recruit follow, because you just basically post something. And
grain seems stronger today.
Well, yeah, I did but then I love that everybody on Twitter hated Parler. And I'd been around Twitter since it began, and I was like, you people have no idea that Twitter used to be kind of like Parler. It was this weird little offshoot that nobody cared about. Everybody's like, that's a garbage app.
That's Clubhouse now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a thing, and I always kind of took offense that the people who were like Twitter legacy or whatever were always like trashing Parler, because I'm like, where do you think you started at it, jerk? And
right.
So my thing was, I would go on Parler and write a grain comment. I'd legit put something into it. I would put real thoughts into it, and I would try to make it good, and then I would post the link to Parler on Twitter purposely. Yeah. And it was like, I'll give it away for free. I will give this away. You got to go read it on Parler. And then they crap can Parler, so that whole bit is gone. So now I'm starting over. So I guess I do a little bit of that comedy stuff just for fun. It's not for anybody else's entertainment. It's for mine.
You need to do it on TikTok now. I could see it working on TikTok.
It would work good.
Well, maybe that's it. See,
I just got to get the algorithms.
I went to Facebook, and mostly Facebook I hated it and trashed it forever, and I still do. But that's when you live in a small town, that's where your kids' events are. So that's where I'm at. I'm on there for family stuff. Mm-hmm. But and so then I get to go torment the grain market guys, and they're all probably great people. They probably think I'm a lunatic, which is fine.
Yeah. So anyway, go to cornwarriors.tv or whatever the heck their deal is. Google it and vote.
Yeah, I wish them the best of luck. With or without Steven, I think that anybody that's willing to promote ag, I would hope they do it in a good light.
They need to have something like that. It doesn't just need to be about growing the 500 bushel. Like, we want to see that fringe acre stuff. We want to see that East Coast corn or whatever they're doing, and he's got such an entertainment value. That's what we want. So
yeah,
I think
cool. I think Hedge is going to end up doing great. I think if he doesn't do it on that show, he ought to go do his own. That's
He
what
went
I told him.
agree.
he went from 0
I
to
agree.
first in a matter of a day. And then overnight, they literally paused the website, and he Joe Biden'd him above, and there was Russian or Ukrainian frickin'
Influence.
voter fraud.
It's like Saturday Night Live came to life on Twitter, and it's about this corn show, and I've got it's almost like the Onion. It's the Onion that's happening in real life.
He's done more press, positive or negative, for Corn Warriors
Corn
than
Warriors.
they've had in the last 7 seasons or whatever.
I agree. I didn't realize it was.
Someone had a tweet that he should get paid either way.
I agree. I didn't realize it was still going on until I saw this. Like, I thought it was 4 seasons and done.
And they should also sponsor this podcast.
There you go. Hey, that's the funny thing, and I'll say this about ag media. It was something that, because I didn't have any ends to it other than just, I had a podcast and I got enough of a following that I ended up at trade shows. And you start to realize that a bunch of this stuff is just kind of like, it's put together because no one really knows how to do it.
Yep.
Right.
So if you're creative, and I say this honestly to anybody out there, if you're creative and you want to give it a shot, just like what you guys are doing, you try it. What the hell? If it doesn't work, so what? And I see a ton of young people really getting into podcasting, and I think it's great. It's a new medium. It's still in its infancy because we're still dealing with real conversations that
Right.
can happen in multiple. It's infinite in the spread that you can cover. So
Yeah.
there's tons and tons of potential out there to go do anything creative. And so when you talk about like Steven or somebody else like that, go do your own thing.
Yeah.
Don't worry
Right.
about getting on somebody else's show.
And
That's
we
fine.
we talked to Tim Hammerich a couple weeks back on our Profit episode, and
Great dude. He's a leader in there.
he was kind of saying the same thing, that go do a podcast, because if you think your niche is agriculture, your niche is too big. I mean, if you have something that you enjoy, that you want to talk to or talk about, then do it. Go out there and share what's going on. I mean, the fascinating part to me in the podcast world is, yes, there's millions of podcasts to where you can be in the top half of podcasts if you only have a couple hundred downloads every week. I mean, it doesn't take a significant audience for you to, capture more than the average person. So it's a lot of fun to see how that goes and continue to grow. But ultimately, I know what this means because my bladder is signaling a second break. And
I understand.
all that
I
means,
understand. Hey,
all
go
that
ahead.
means, Jerod, is that this conversation is going to end up being cut way too short. I think you are now the second podcast that we need to do a double. We had the same experience with Farm Boy Matt when he was on, and we're going to have to do a repeat because I feel like I could talk to you, like the Corey said, until midnight.
Yeah.
Hey, well, you know what? We're all young men, and we're going to live long lives. We'll have another conversation, and we can continue this one, or even add to it with the life experiences that we gain between now and
Oh,
then.
yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. But
Yeah.
we all have stuff going on and things to happen. So I would keep. Again, I think you guys are 3 or 4 shots away from really getting into this no excuses running deal, and I think we're right there. We're on the cusp of doing this.
Hey, I enjoy running. I had a target. I actually wanted to do, was it Jason Meadows did, how many miles was that? 1,000 miles last year?
He did 1,000 miles last year.
So
he's a runner.
I wanted to set that goal for myself this year, but knew that my January was going to be handicapped. But I do. I enjoy going for a run. It's my, like I said, it's my time to myself.
I got you. We're right there with you, man.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna address the excuse of no excuse.
You got 11 months. You could do it.
I get it. I got it.
You want me to sign it off?
Yeah.
All right. Crack a Franklin Street Brewing Company beer, mix a drink, go run a mile because you got no freaking excuse. Walk it if you have to. You deserve it.
That's right.
That's right.